Moon Knight, Episode 6, Gods and Monsters, or as I like to think of it, alternatively titled, Worse Than Expected. This was offensively stupid and packed more bullshit than a Mary Sue blog post on why we need more gender studies doctorates by this squad. The episode went as expected, I guess. Almost to the T, in fact. The only thing I got wrong in the predictions was the runtime. Once I subtracted the recap and the credits, the hacks writing this garbage had 35 minutes to do their thing. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Any more and I'd have probably needed to rebook my rage training coach before something awful happened. The episode ripped through its necessary beats, leaving little time for Moon Knight to do anything, and instead making Layla the focal point for the finale. I'm sorry, but who's the main character here? Whose name is on the fucking marquee? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, Mark and Steven are still dead. Layla decides to go it alone. She takes the scarab compass and magically avoids detection while tailing Harrow's men. And then somehow she survives his soul-sucking massacre of the entire Egyptian military at a roadblock.
Hold up.
Well, hold up. If Harrow does his soul-judging thing here, and he survives, and his cult survives, and Layla survives, doesn't that mean they're all pure of heart and in the right? Wouldn't that mean that every soldier that died at that roadblock right then and there was an evil piece of shit that deserved to die, except for the one guy that Harrow admits into the cult? Something don't add up there. Anyway, annoying Hippo God jumps back out of her lane for a second time and warns Layla not to try to move on Harrow by herself. She's speaking to Layla through one of the dead soldiers, and for some reason, the Egyptian goddess of motherhood and pregnancy is now standing in as a caretaker of the dead in place of Anubis. I guess we all need two fucking jobs these days. Damn inflation. Divine Hippo tells Layla to bring Mark back from the dead by freeing Khonshu from his statue prison. Layla says, "Now go it alone," because of course she will. Because she's better than Indiana Jones, Lara Croft, Moon Knight, Batman, Godzilla, everybody all wrapped up into one. Harrow opens up the Chamber of the Gods, and for some reason the human avatars of the other Egyptian gods are already there, despite not having been summoned by anybody. They seem surprised Harrow's up to no good. And God help me, these guys must be dumber than the Netflix execs that backed Cuties. Like, the whole thing was laid out there for you in episode 2. Spectre showed up and told you this jackass was up to no good, nobody believed him, and you called his mental health into question. Dickheads. And in what's probably the biggest surprise in the episode, Marvel finds a team of superheroes lamer than the Eternals. They show up, and Harrow single-handedly kicks all of their asses. Way to put up a fight, guys. Layla watches this all goes down, and has a very wise change of heart. She runs out of the chamber part of the temple, and springs Khonshu. Meanwhile, Harrow's freeing Ammit finally, and I'll give him credit here. The creature design and the effects look really slick and lifelike. Animations, facial expressions, movements, everything looks really slick, stylized, and cool. Harrow finally gets his obligatory avatar upgrade that we knew was coming since episode 1, and then we switch right into Layla having a conversation with Khonshu after breaking him out. And this quickly becomes one of the really pet peeve kind of scenes I have with these Marvel shows. We have a mortal female here who's trying to match wits and wills with an Egyptian god. And that kind of shit always rubs me the wrong way when, like, mortal people get the upper hand on deity figures that are timeless and are forces of nature. Like, they squabble like an old married couple about Mark's fate, and Layla completely ignores the fact and circumstances of how Mark entered into the agreement with Khonshu in the first place. I find those things taken out of context to be really disingenuous in the writers, and how they try to portray certain characters as having gotten the better of infinitely more powerful beings. It's just really fucking annoying. And we hit the 33% mark of the episode, and look who showed up finally. The title character, Moon Knight's finally here. Except it's not really Moon Knight, it's just Mark Spector in the afterlife. He's chilling in the field of reeds with Towerette, the hippo goddess, and she's trying to tell him to enjoy the peace he's earned, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna go back into the dark sand area and try and rescue Steven, who is a fake personality I made up when I was a kid, but he's his own person and he deserves to live too. So Mark just kind of walks out of the field of reeds into the sands, instantly finds Steven, they have a little heart-to-heart, whatever. And then for some reason, the gates magically open because that little heart-to-heart balanced their individual scales, I guess? Who fucking knows? None of this shit makes any sense anyway. We flip back into the real world. Khonshu's getting his ass kicked by Ammit. She's tossing him around like a rag doll. It's kind of fucking hilarious. Steven and Mark outrun a sand wave with the help of a Tokyo drifting Towerette, who shifts the sands out of the way, while Egyptologist Steven cheered, Moon Knight's finally reborn. We get music, which I do enjoy. It's too bad it's wasted here. Mark and Steven have a chat with Khonshu in their respective suits about the terms of their arrangement. Steven morphs back into Mark, and he flies with Khonshu's power back to Cairo. where the show's real star Layla Knight's ready to take on the world by herself. She learns from the defeated Eternals B team that the only way to stop Harrow is to bind the spirit of Ammit back into a living vessel. Layla quickly realizes she's up Schitt's Creek without a paddle, reaches out to Towerette, and after a really short chase scene, becomes Towerette's avatar with the obligatory costume reveal. Then the plot decides it's finally time for Mark to get up off his ass and head to Cairo. So he flies into town just as Harrow is about to unleash hell on the mortal world. Harrow unleashes the soul-sucking spell that allows his acolytes to judge everybody in Cairo, because now everybody has the tattoo on the wrist thing. So we've got mass cult work going underway, and soul-sucking across Cairo goes down. I think I saw that movie somewhere else. Anyway, so as the souls go through, Ammit's powering up, she's getting Godzilla-sized. It's pretty dope to look at. Again, good creature effects. Mark shows up. I'm seeing. He starts to beef with Harrow. Ammit squares off against supersized Khonshu. Iconic shot in front of the moon. It's pretty good super knee. They slug it out DCEU style with a couple of aerial battles for a few frames. Mark switches back and forth between the Moon Knight suit and the Mr. Knight suit with Steven. Ammit and Khonshu slug it out for a little bit. Khonshu looks like he's got the upper hand. Ammit hits him with the tail sweep and drops him down. We cut real quick over to Mark eating a little bit of turf himself. Funny how they both go down at the same time. Harrow's talking a little bit of smack. He starts to set him up for the death blow, and bada bing! Layla Knight shows up for the big save again. Because of course she does. Because this is actually her show. It's never been anything besides her show. She gets the drop on Harrow with the little blaster reverse. Makes him look like a punk. We get decent action of Steven and Layla running through Harrow's grunts. For some reason, Steven can fight now too with advanced techniques. It's not just Mark's bag anymore. He transforms back into Mark Spector's costume because it's cool, I guess. There's no real purpose served. Their powers are completely identical now. Mark and Layla 2v1 Harrow in a discount Duel of the Fate style battle. Harrow gets the upper hand, civilians are endangered, and what do you know, Layla swoops in for the big save again. And here's where we get the most ham-fisted, on-the-nose cringe line in MCU history. I'm sorry, I gotta stop here and go on a little bit of a rant. In what world post-Endgame, where we know we're not alone in the universe, and have seen literal alien heroes die on our behalf, these dickhead writers still want to cram in on-the-nose messaging about diverse superheroes? So are little black girls, or Korean girls, or Brazilian girls supposed to not look up to Layla because she's specifically an Egyptian superhero? Captain America or Superman never called themselves American superheroes. Wonder Woman never self-identified as an Amazonian superhero. They were just superheroes, and most of the time they claimed they weren't even that. They were just people doing what they could to help, because it was the right thing to do. We get more of Layla laying the smackdown on Harrow's guys, while Moon Knight is getting his ass tossed around by Harrow. Harrow puts Mark down, Ammit puts Khonshu down short after, and Layla finds herself pinned to an overturned car. All looks lost. Harrow begins to obliterate Mark with the soul steal from his powered-up staff, ladies. Mark sees Layla under heavy threat. The screen does its shimmery wig-out thing, and Mark's holding the staff to Harrow's forehead like he's about to kill him. Harrow's men are down. Layla frees herself. Couldn't have done that a minute before, I guess. And clearly we can't have Mark free her now, but whatever. Mark and Steven don't know how they won. They suspect that it wasn't them. Layla takes the lead. Of course she does. They do the binding thing because somehow she's an expert in all this, despite having only been an avatar for less time than it takes to remember why you shouldn't have gotten back together with that ex. And I guess it only took 2 avatars to bind Ammit this whole time, and not a whole team of them like it did before. Ammit's bound inside Harrow. Mark readies to kill him. Layla intervenes. Khonshu reminds Moon Knight that Ammit will kill again. Mark gets all smug and says, "Now you sound like her," and to do it yourself. They talk about a gross oversimplification. Ammit is the personification of divine retribution. It is quite literally all she can do. She's not some human felon you can send to rehab and hope she gives up all the genociding to open a fucking Cinnabon. Mark demands freedom from Khonshu's pact. Khonshu agrees. The suit vanishes in a flash of light. We flash back into Dr. Harrow's mind office. The illusion breaks down. Jake's voice slips out a little bit. Steven says, "We're gonna go save the world." And I'm like, "Hey, dickhead, you got no suit as far as you know. Good luck with that." He drifts back into the real world. Wakes up to the original song from episode 1. I note there's 2 fish in the tank. Wonder what that could mean. Mark chats with Steven and falls flat on his face because he's tied to the bed again. The end. And that's it. That's Moon Knight. He falls flat on his face to wrap up his show. And then given the runtime, the stinger scene we get at the end of the credits is something I suspect was probably part of the original episode before they yanked it and put it. We see Harrow being sprung from a hospital by an unseen person. loaded into the back of a Rolls-type limo, and then ceremoniously shot dead by Jake Lockley after being introduced by Khonshu. And it kind of leaves me wondering what kind of deity Khonshu really is. If he's really about protecting the Tribals of the Night, how could he be down with Jake Lockley killing a nurse to spring Harrow? Doesn't make any sense. And that's just going to bring me into my final section of this video and this review, guys. I didn't really like this series. It left way too many questions and continuity issues left unanswered and unspoken for. So that's all she wrote for Moon Knight, boys and girls. Another sterling entry into the MCU and Disney+. It's not the hottest to take, so I'll just stop and say it. Moon Knight capital S sucked down the stretch, and that's too bad. Of all the MCU shows on Disney+, I was most hyped for this one. It was the first one to feature a Marvel character not prominently featured in the movie. Once again, it's a wasted opportunity. We had excellent performances by a couple of the actors in Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. The effects were good, but mostly it was questionable story and main character backseating. And mostly it just leaves me with a bunch of questions. And this list is by no means comprehensive, it's just things that I noticed that kind of annoy me. For starters, Layla avoids detection despite talking to a dead body in the street in broad daylight at the roadblock, despite being 20 feet from an armed cult on high alert. Mental illness is treated like a superpower and is inconsistent with how any of it works or how the treatment for those various disorders also works. Is Khonshu evil now? Why was he okay with Jake killing the nurse in the stinger scene? Are we to assume the nurse was evil and simply not collateral damage? Why didn't Towerette have an avatar in the first place? How did Harrow 1v6 the other avatars and win? Guns or no guns, shouldn't they all at least be Moon Knight's equal? I mean, we know they're dumb as fuck and couldn't see Harrow's plan, but okay, whatever. I guess I just don't like superheroes face planning all the time. They probably thought bringing it full circle in that end scene was funny, but nah, that ain't me. I'm good with not seeing my superheroes fall flat on their face every 7 minutes. Call me crazy. Now, how many times does the male superhero main character need saving exactly? Or his deity for that matter? They both got bodied a lot. Why do mortals get to mess openly with the will of gods in this show? Where's the wrath and the retribution? Layla's conversation in particular with Khonshu was grating as hell, because I just don't see how any mortal being can match wits and will with an Egyptian deity who's timeless and whose express purpose is to deliver justice into the mortal world. And then we get a flat as hell ending. I don't mean flat like A cup at a dive strip bar. Moon Knight gets tooled on, and then a seizure gimmick, and then poof, good guys win. Yep, didn't want to see any of that. Wouldn't have been a perfect time to unleash Jake Lockley into the world. But whatever, I guess you only had 35 minutes and 20 of those needed to be Layla night time. And if destroying the statues frees the gods, wouldn't killing Harrow after Ammit's transposed into his body re-release her? There's no lore in the world to suggest otherwise, and that's kind of concerning, considering that's how they resolve their main crisis. And I guess I come down as mixed on the ending. Mark and Steven are free, but Khonshu still has Jake. Why does the roll's plate say Spectre? Mr. Knight's supposed to be the money man. And where's Layla? How are things resolved there? Is she still pissed that Mark may have had something to do with killing her father? Who knows? Is she still Towerette's avatar? Couldn't tell you, because after she saves the day, she just kind of vanishes. And I guess that's it for this episode, guy. I'm glad this only went 6 episodes. If it went 8 and I got more of Layla Night, it would have been even more obnoxious. But I think this is the recurring pattern for these Disney Plus entries. You're going to get a title character that you might recognize from the comic books when you were younger, but they're definitely just going to implant some crap and some new characters that you're not familiar with to steal the show by the end of the series and leave any character that you enjoyed coming up laying in the dust and being second or third fiddle in their own show. But I appreciate you guys stopping by and checking out all the reviews. It was fun to do. It was a fun way to start a new channel, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. I think up next, after I finish Halo, I'm going to get into Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We do have a couple of mixed feelings on that first episode there, but at least it sort of feels like old Trek. So we'll be able to check that out hopefully in the next coming weeks as I get a couple of more reviews underneath me. But until next time, this has been Winterwolf, thanking you for coming back to Winterwolf's Den, and I'll see you in the next one.